welcome. With this morning's Russian invasion of Ukraine, I thought I'd take just a few minutes and talk about what we'd expect I guess, the impact of this on the U.S. economy and also global equity markets. As I have mentioned in the last couple of videos, we've talked about heightened volatility, and we have experienced that. I think the last week or maybe two, just leading up to this Russian invasion, I think that's been a big factor in the heightened volatility. But prior to that, and maybe as a part of this, has been obviously the concern of the Fed and the Federal Reserve raising interest rates. And within inflation, which has been the big discussion up until all the Russia stuff, is I think we're still going to have concerns around inflation. And we've seen energy prices spike here prior to the invasion of Ukraine, and I think we're going to see heightened oil prices, and that has a real trickle-down effect throughout the economy because everything is connected to energy, manufacturing, transportation. It affects all of us at home. So I think the Fed is now going to be looking at some of the same issues that they were looking at prior to the Russian invasion, but now you've got the concerns around the Russian invasion and what that has to do with the economy. And I think here for the United States, I don't think it's going to have a significant economic impact, unless for some reason consumers would change their purchasing habits and such, but I just don't see that. An area where I think it may be of concern is we think of Russia, we think of oil, natural gas, but they're also big suppliers of minerals to the world. So that's going to impact manufacturing. I'll talk a bit about sanctions, but as we impose sanctions on them and possibly sanctions in economic warfare back and forth, this is not going to help the supply chain issues. So that could even lead to more inflationary pressures. So I think the next big topic is just the Fed. I think that's still going to be the biggest factor in the U.S. economy this year, is because I think the U.S. economy will continue on this growth trajectory. And I think the Federal Reserve now has to deal with how do we remove some of the stimulus, this massive amount of stimulus that we put into the U.S. economy during COVID. How do we begin to remove that without throwing the U.S. economy into recession? And I still think that's going to be the big driver for us here in the United States this year. But I still think the economy will do well this year. I don't think that this is going to trickle over into our economy. I do think from an economic standpoint, but also an equity standpoint, I think this is going to have more of an impact on the Europeans. They get the majority of their natural gas for power from Russia. And gas prices, natural gas prices in Europe are about 10 times what they are in the United States, and that is not going to get better. So they are going to feel that inflationary pressure there. Just from the standpoint of the consumer to manufacturers, it's going to be felt there more than I think we will feel it here. Talking about sanctions against smaller countries like Iran or maybe North Korea are probably not so impactful, but when you're dealing with a bigger country, it can hurt U.S. companies as they can't sell then into those nations. So long-term sanctions are not good for U.S. businesses. The other concern with Russia is the U.S. currency as the global reserve currency is still 2/3 of global transactions, or roughly about 2/3 of global transactions, are done in dollars, whether the United States is involved or not. China's been trying to subvert that for years now, and crushing the Russian banking system is only going to encourage that, I guess, work with Russia and China on trying to develop other ways to transact businesses other than U.S. dollars. So that's definitely something we want to watch, is sanctions, how long we do sanctions, do we get military troops in the Ukraine as well. So I do think we may see a positive in this, that hopefully NATO will come back together again, and it will strengthen that alliance, not just militarily, but also economically, which will be a positive, I think, just for global trade. Because if you remember, Europe is our largest trading partner, and we've lost some of that here over the last, maybe decade or two. So that could be a positive that would come out of this. But my takeaway would be, I don't know that it's going to have a significant impact on our markets here, nor do I think it's going to have a significant impact on our economy. I still think we're going to have to watch the Federal Reserve and see what the Federal Reserve does. I think they will slow their raising of interest rates and stuff. So I would say at this point, I think we hold the course and we stay fully invested in this, because I still think we could see a reasonably good year economically and positive returns in the equity markets if we don't panic with all this. So again, if you have additional questions, reach out to us. I'd love to talk in more detail with you. But otherwise, have a good day, and we'll talk soon.